It's the Monday after championship weekend, Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison, Wisconsin, as always, joined by producer Tiny Hands, my guy Hunter Vaughn with me as well. Lots to get into. We will talk college hoops at some point as I'm reading into. There's apparently some drama going on online. We'll get into that a little bit later, although I have no idea what the hell's going on. Wisconsin, number 6 in the country. Marquette, number 9 in the country. Both Wisconsin's college basketball teams are top 10. Right, and that doesn't count, of course. UW Milwaukee and UW Green Bay, they don't really count here.
First place Green Bay.
First place Green Bay, that's true, but not a top 25 team. Wisconsin, first place, number 6 in the country. They host number 2 Purdue at the Kohl Center on Sunday. So get a little bit excited about that. Marquette, number 9 in the country, as I mentioned. They're back. It seems like, were you there on Saturday, or did you go to the Bucks game?
I went to the Bucks game on Saturday. I did watch the game. And Tyler Kolek drives me insane. Yeah,
you've said that before. So we'll talk a little college hoops and what Strouf learned coming up later. But I do want to dive into the championship weekend because it was quite the weekend. Let's start with game 1 on Sunday. That was Baltimore and Kansas City. The biggest takeaway from that game is you just can't count out Patrick Mahomes ever. I made the mistake of counting out Patrick Mahomes not once but twice this postseason. I picked Buffalo and Baltimore in back-to-back weeks. You can't count out Patrick Mahomes. And when the Packers played the Chiefs in early December, I said something along the lines of, this ain't your grandmama's Kansas City defense, because this is a good defense. And clearly it is a good defense, holding Baltimore to only 10 points yesterday, finishing 17-10 the final score. No points in the second half for the Chiefs' offense. Didn't matter. They had 17. It was 17-7 at halftime. They won 17-10. Now, it should have probably been closer. Zay Flowers with the controversial fumble right on the goal line, essentially, which would have put the Ravens, I think, within 3. I think it would have made it 14-17 when that happened. So that was a fun one. But you can't pick against Patrick Mahomes. The guy is on pace to be the greatest quarterback that's ever played. And I understand the praise that is, right? Saying Patrick Mahomes is well on his way to becoming the best quarterback to ever play the game is a very big compliment, and probably too big of one. But I don't know how you can deny it at this point, at least in terms of talent, right? Like, nobody was a winner, and nobody will probably ever be a winner like Tom Brady, but you have to now give Patrick Mahomes the Tom Brady treatment, which is essentially you can't pick against him. He is phenomenal, and this Chiefs team is fun to watch, regardless of if you're against dynasties, which I understand that take, right? You want fresh blood, and that's what I wanted. I wanted Baltimore, Detroit. We got the opposite of that. I love watching Patrick Mahomes. I love watching the Chiefs. I just don't know that I wanted to see them in the Super Bowl again, but I don't have much of a choice at this point, do I? So I'm in on the Chiefs. Chiefs 17-10 over the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. The other game brought an all-too-familiar feeling now, as the Detroit Lions, who were up 24-7 at halftime, lose to the San Francisco 49ers, a final of 34-31. Ugh. I hate the San Francisco 49ers. That's the realization I've come to. And it took me a week longer than it probably should have, right? Like, they beat the Packers again in the divisional round. Then they go on and come back down 24-7 at halftime to beat the Detroit Lions. It's so frustrating. Now, I just feel for the Lions because I've been there before, right? Like, we've seen, unfortunately, the fall from grace that happens after halftime. It brought me back to the Brandon Bostic NFC Championship game, right, where it's just like, they've got this in the bag. I was texting a buddy of mine during this game yesterday, and I was like, the 49ers are bad, right? Like, they look horrible. And he goes, just wait, Strouf, just wait. They're explosive. They're going to come back. I'm like, I don't think so. It's 24-7. They're done. He's like, just wait. And there you go. San Francisco 49ers back to the Super Bowl, rematch of 3 years ago. Chiefs 49ers, and as it stands, the Monday, 2 Mondays prior to the Super Bowl, I can't pick against Patrick Mahomes. He's too damn good. I just can't pick against him. He's going to win his 3rd Super Bowl. I don't trust the 49ers, and we're going to talk to Josh DiMaggio in a few minutes, but I saw he tweeted something about discourse around Kyle Shanahan in the middle of this, what looked like a 49ers collapse prior to the comeback. I think I'm ready to have the conversation, too, despite their win, that he might not be as great as we think he is. And look, he coached a nice comeback, And Brock Purdy looked good. Brock Purdy looked like what Lamar Jackson probably should have looked like in terms of mobility. And they're a good team, right? Like I've called them before the gold standard of what it means to be a consistently good team in the NFC. But I don't know what type of coach would fail with a roster built the way the 49ers are. Like, props to their general manager, John Lynch. But I don't know. But this Detroit collapse, to go back to that, just felt like a Green Bay Packers collapse. Like what we're used to. We kind of saw one last week against San Francisco. We saw one a few years ago against Seattle in the NFC Championship game. I just feel for Lions fans. And I saw a tweet going around, or a couple tweets going around, how you shouldn't cheer for Detroit if you're a Packers fan. And I just fully disagree with that. I was rooting for Detroit yesterday. I understand they're a divisional rival, but who gives a damn? Right? Like, they suck and always have sucked my entire life. So just to see a team come from the ashes, rise like a phoenix, if you will. Shout out UW Green Bay. I like the story. I was rooting for them. And they just blew it. And Dan Campbell, after the game, actually made me very happy because he pretty much said something along the lines to the effect of, I don't know if we're ever going to be back here. I don't know if we're ever going to get back here. And it's a loser outlook, but it is a very realistic outlook of like, yeah, it's really hard to win in the NFL. It's really hard to get to the NFC Championship game, and it's really hard to be up 24-7 at halftime in the NFC Championship and lose that game. So, yeah, I feel for Detroit. I feel for Lions fans. I understand the mindset of we'll be back, but Dan Campbell's right. It ain't that easy. And I don't know if they will be because as far as I'm concerned, the division goes to the Green Bay Packers in 2024. And I know I'm biased, and I know I'm too optimistic sometimes. But of the quarterbacks that played yesterday, outside of Mahomes and maybe Jackson, who did not have a good game, give me Jordan Love every day of the week. He's the best quarterback in the NFC, or at least one of them. So as far as I'm concerned, that division runs through Green Bay. Now, again, that doesn't mean Detroit can't get back. I just don't think they're going to have an easier path than they had here in 2023. So that sets up the big game. It sets up a rematch, Chiefs-Niners in a couple of weeks in Las Vegas. The Niners have the opportunity to get some revenge from a couple of years ago. Mahomes has the opportunity to win Super Bowl number 3 and only year 6 as a starter, which is just absurd. I don't want to get into the Super Bowl too much today. I mean, we've got 2 weeks to do that. It's an exciting game. I think it'll be a good one. I think it'll be low scoring. It's going to be more about the defenses than it will be about the quarterbacks. But I do got to give a shout out to our guy Brock Purdy, Hunter. He's given this podcast some notoriety, given the name of the podcast. Like, shout out to Purdy.
He's really helping out.
Yeah, he is, right? Like, I imagine people are searching the term Mr. Relevant more these days, so thanks, Brock.
Our numbers have been boosting up.
How can we get him on the show in the offseason? Can you work on that? I just don't know what the avenue is.
I'll try and work on that. I have a feeling I'm going to probably have to go through, like, 49ers PR at this point. Like, he's become
we got to avoid PR.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like he's gotten to the point where he's probably sending everything through that.
He's not going to sue us, right? I don't think he can. Okay,
no, because he hasn't done anything to like make money off of it.
Well,
so
I see. I mentioned off the top college basketball drama. Like, I think Jeff Goodman, if you know who that is like threatening to sue people. I don't know. I got to read more into it. Okay, so 49ers Chiefs is coming up. Let's bring in our buddy Josh DiMaggio from Jen, Gabe, and Chewy on ESPN Milwaukee, who's already laughing at me. What'd I do this time, Joshy? What's up, dude?
You made just a classic mistake where you led yourself down a road where you didn't know all the details and goes, well, I don't know what that's all about. So nobody has any clue. Now we're just going to be looking up Jeff Goodman. What's he suing for and why?
Yeah.
But here we are.
Well, yeah, he's trending on Twitter right now because the AP poll just dropped, Joshy. Big news, right? Both teams in the state of Wisconsin are top 10. We've got a top 6 matchup at the Kohl Center on Sunday, rather, as Purdue comes to town. Big college basketball week. It's officially college basketball season. But, yeah, like, everybody's tweeting about the Jeff Goodman downfall. So I'm just very confused. You know who that is?
I don't know. I haven't the slightest idea. Honestly, I couldn't care less about Jeff Goodman. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But I wish him the best. Whatever's happening, or I'm sorry that happened, or he shouldn't have done that. Whatever the scenario is, I want to cover all bases.
All right, I love it. Okay, so do you want to start with the Kyle Shanahan discourse? Because you're convinced he's not as great of a head coach as others believe.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a little tongue-in-cheek nature to that, obviously following the 2 comebacks that they've had. But The guy is the architect of one of the historic collapses in all of major American sports in the way he called the game. He is largely behind the Trey Lance draft pick, which now has worked out because of the namesake of this very show. Mr. Irrelevant has proven to be pretty damn good in some pretty big spots. But I think this team and the 49ers have not shown what they should, and they have all these sort of built-in excuses. Like, there's injury problems, the quarterback's not good enough. It just seems all the time that Kyle Shanahan has an army of people defending him. When here's the thing I know about him. He's a great offensive play caller. Mm-hmm. He's a great offensive schemer. Is he good at getting his teams ready for playoff games? I don't know, because they've come out and looked like absolute crap the past 2 weeks, and we've seen them lose. Like, he is a historic playoff loser at this point in his career. He loses in ways that are impressive. He gets you there, and you lose.
Okay, so I guess I'll agree with that, but he still gets there. And if he's a historic playoff loser, right, like what does that make Matt LaFleur then, Joshy? Would be my follow-up.
Aaron Rodgers got us there for the longest time. He won once. Yeah, you expect more from him. I expect more from Kyle Shanahan. And
okay.
I mean, Matt LaFleur, yeah. I would have hoped they won more Super Bowls with Aaron Rodgers when he was an MVP and they were winning 13 games and having 1 seeds, you know?
Okay. So
it's just he's considered, at this point to me, Kyle Shanahan is considered like untouchable and he can't be crossed because he's the best thing going. But like, aside from a historic collapse yesterday, that team goes home completely embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, they look like absolute poopy in the first half, right?
That was as big of a they were being manhandled.
But what
Detroit was doing everything they wanted.
But that's kind of what, and it wasn't obviously to that level, but that's kind of what happened a week ago, right, with Green Bay. They came out hot, right, and they just couldn't capitalize on some opportunities in the first half. Had they, I still think they were playing yesterday. But 2 weeks in a row, first half they look awful, second half they look like the 49ers we know. Obviously, that's not sustainable. If you do that against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you're losing and not coming back late.
Correct.
So are you just taking pride in holding Kyle Shanahan accountable? Is that what's going on here?
Someone's got to do it around here. No one else is. I mean, the guy's got the Avengers out there. It's the Monstars. He's got all pros running around everywhere.
That's true.
Of course, in the second half, when it matters, some of these guys are going to show up and make some pretty damn big plays. Like, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. But was the offensive game plan in the first half good enough? Like, shouldn't they be beating these teams by a lot? Like, shouldn't they be walking away? They were over a touchdown favorite against the Packers, and it was hold on to your butts. We got to come back in the last second. And it took Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling, Brandon Ayuk making a deep catch off his face mask, and then Brock Purdy turning into Lamar Jackson for an entire series with like 50 rushing yards. Like, that's not a sustainable approach. The sustainability is like when I looked at Patrick Mahomes and said, yeah, this guy just rolls out of bed and he takes you to AFC Championship games and most likely the Super Bowl because he's that good.
Yeah, we'll talk about Mahomes in a second. But, okay, so Brock Purdy, better than Jordan Love, yes or no?
Brock Purdy has put together 2 second halves in back-to-back games where he looked like as good of a quarterback as possible. Yeah. I think his floor, though, is amongst the worst floors, almost in like a Jared Goff type of way, where the bad is bad and unplayable. But, like, if I'm to project ceilings and a guy I want more, it's still Jordan Love, and people might call me crazy, whatever it is. But Jordan Love's a more dynamic athlete, and I think can kind of play off script in a way that Brock Purdy just simply can't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's a good evaluation of that. All right, so San Francisco back in the Super Bowl. You're not rooting for San Francisco.
No, of course not.
But are you rooting for Kansas City?
I think yes, because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback alive and still somehow underrated.
Hold on. How is he underrated?
I mean, it's like, remember LeBron when they were just started giving other people MVPs because they felt like someone else deserved them?
Yes,
like,
I do.
He's just that good, and it doesn't matter. If he gets in the playoffs, he's going to take you incredibly far, and he's probably going to be the reason your team goes that far. Like, the Tom Brady comparisons are like starting for him. And I'll say this, at their peaks, what we've seen from 2018 to today is better than anything Tom Brady ever did. There is no better quarterback and no guy who's elevated his team in a similar way. Now, Tom Brady's career is miles apart. The guy is the greatest winner probably in sports as we know it. But the peak we've seen from Patrick Mahomes is incredible, and I think I enjoy watching greatness. It's that simple. Like, when it comes down to it, I don't find the Chiefs that unlikable. Like, Andy Reid is a likable guy. Travis Kelce, people are wanting to get on about Taylor Swift. Grow up, get over your fragile masculinity. Like, there's some fun things to like on there.
All right, so you're all in on T Swift.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way. In my house, I'm very out on it because there's two people in my house that talk about Taylor Swift being bigger than the NFL and a bigger draw and all that. But when it comes to, in general, the discourse, the thing is, how much is the NFL worth? Like, how many? $100 billion? Is Taylor that? I don't think so.
Okay, but you're comparing one person to. Okay, anyway, just continue your point. Just continue.
I didn't make the comparison. So,
yes, you did. Yes, you did.
No, I'm saying the people in my house made the comparison, and I was refuting it in my own terms.
Who are you referring to?
My girlfriend, and we have a roommate.
Okay. Wait, hold on. So you live with your girlfriend and a roommate?
Yes.
How's that dynamic?
I mean, fine. I mean, you know me. I mind my own business. I stay out of the way and just do what I do.
Is this a female roommate?
Yes.
Okay. Has this always been the case, or is this roommate new? Is this something I just never knew about you?
It's new to me, so I wasn't there, so I kind of moved into their situation.
Oh, how recently?
Fairly recent. I don't remember. I could have moved in there last month or 6 months ago or 6 years ago. I don't know. I live my life, man. That's how you do it.
No, that's not how you do it. I mean, you should have at least a little bit of a recollection of when the hell something went on. So, wait. So I have questions on this now. All right. So, it's an okay situation living with a third roommate?
It's fine. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any negatives. Except for the fact
I feel like there's another
person in the house.
Well, yeah, but that's not necessarily a negative. So is this is a 2-bedroom location? 3. Oh, do you get your own space?
I get a closet.
Okay, and then I would assume you share a room with your girlfriend.
Yes.
How close is this room in relation to the roommate's room?
Next door.
Joshy. I don't mean to dive into details too much, but that seems uncomfortable.
Stroufy, there's a lot of stuff about this that is just really not that interesting that I know you're looking for, but it's more like a circumstance thing than it is like a by choice thing. So right. I don't want to like cut you off at the knees here, but I was going to buy a house. It fell through because it's expensive, and here we are.
All right, fair enough. I'll move off that. I'll save it for maybe over a beer sometimes. I have more questions.
I promise you, and I'm not doing this just for this and trying to cut it off. I have nothing more interesting on it.
I need to understand dynamic, how dinner works. Like, are you taking turns between the three of you?
No. There's one cook in the house, and then everyone else cleans up.
Who's the cook?
My girlfriend.
Okay. What if you want to take her out on a date? Do you have to bring like leftovers then for the roommate?
No, everyone's adults. We're all grown-ups. There's no babies in the house.
Well, you live there, so I despite the beard, I tend to disagree with that assessment. Okay. Were you watching yesterday's games a little pissed off? Like, hey, the Packers should be playing today? Because I kind of got to that point.
No, I'll tell you why, and it's pretty simple for me. It's after the Packers fired Joe Barry, my brain kind of just advanced. So I'm just looking forward into what's coming next. Like, I was pretty bummed. I mean, you were on the stream. We didn't have a great time. We ended it abruptly. I all sports context for the next 24 hours. And then Joe Barry news came out, and it kind of has to just change your mind. I'm looking forward. I don't hang on to that like that all that long. Like I did think it was a missed opportunity. I was bummed by it. The Packers were better for 59 minutes of that game.
They sure were.
But it is what it is. And I think the fact that it came down to Jordan Love showing his youth and the team showing their youth kind of in that situation makes it easier to deal with, because I mean, he made a terrible throw to end a game where he could have tied or won it. So it's like you can easily tell yourself the story that he's going to be better and the team's going to be better moving forward.
That's fair. What do you make of? So I'm a little bit tied up on what happened this weekend. So I saw that a dude reported Christian Parker was offered the job. Did you see this?
I did.
I'm in a fantasy football league with that guy.
However, Parker or the guy who reported it?
No, the guy who reported it.
Oh, okay.
No, I am not in a fantasy football league with a future defensive coordinator in the NFL. That'd be sweet, though. So the guy that reported it. However, all due respect to him, I don't think he has sources, Joshy.
And I don't want to take this guy out, but the first time I saw him was the first time I'd ever heard of the person who reported it. So
yeah,
it did strike me as surprising, but I don't know anything about this person. Like, if he's a Green Bay local, we've seen news sneak out through like the locals there.
That's true.
Kind of in a way that you wouldn't expect, like in a way that isn't the traditional manner, because like Green Bay's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. So I don't want to immediately say this guy was just making up sources or that he's wrong. I just was surprised to see the name associated with the report.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And now that it's been like almost 48 hours since that was reported, do you think Christian Parker is just like sitting on a job offer and not doing anything about it, or was he not actually offered said job? I don't know what to make.
I would lean towards he wasn't actually offered the job. I would think maybe there was some interpretations that got their wires crossed. Like maybe they were impressed by Christian Parker and his defensive coordinator, like the interview they had. But I mean, Matt LaFleur interviewed 9 guys last time.
Yeah, 9.
So the fact that they would just cut it off at the 4th guy they wanted to talk to and be like, "Yep, this is the guy," was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, well, it helps that he spent some time in Green Bay. He was a defensive quality control coach for LaFleur's first 2 years, 2019, 2020, with the team, and then he's been the D-backs coach in Denver since. I don't know that I want a young guy, though, right? Like, he's 32 years old. He doesn't have any D coordinator experience. And look, I'm never going to knock a hire until I see it in action. But it's one that doesn't excite me. Rex Ryan excites me, Josh. Like guys like that excite me. Guys with a lot of experience that are going to be maybe a long-term solution at D coordinator. Names like that would excite me. And Christian Parker, likely at least a short-term option, several years, but as a 32-year-old up-and-coming coach, there might be head coaching aspirations there. And I don't know if that's what I want for a team that I truly believe their Super Bowl window is open right away in 2024 after what we saw this year. So I would prefer somebody with experience.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you, and that's kind of what I was expecting them to go with, because to me, Matt LaFleur wants a guy who's basically going to be a second head coach, and he's just going to tell the defense, hey, do what you need to win games, be aggressive, and make a difference. And hearing the young guys get brought up, because like some of the other names aren't necessarily names that are household names, I truly expected it to be more of those like Wink Martindales, the Rex Ryans, like guys who have a stated history. But to me also, how many young guys have we seen come into the league and become the biggest name because they think about defense a different way? They approach it in a way that makes a big difference. Like, is Wink Martindale and what he's done as a defensive coordinator worth more than the possible upside of somebody like Christian Parker? I don't know. I read that, you know, he's credited with a lot of the defensive turnaround in Denver with them. Like Vance Joseph, I believe, gave him a lot of credit and said, hey, this guy is making a difference on our team, and he's the type of guy who like deserves a defensive coordinator position. So it feels risky. And I don't know if risky's the right thing for the Packers right now. But if it works out, it could be an absolute home run.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I just maybe I'm just judgmental because the last time they hired an established defensive coordinator, his name was Joe Barry, and it didn't work out very well. So maybe they need fresh ideas in a young guy. So I'm very in between on what I want. I just want the hire to be made.
I'm trying to figure out if I can trust Matt LaFleur with the hiring job. Because the Joe Barry thing is as big of a red mark, a big of a hit against him as possible.
True that.
But it seems like otherwise he's made pretty good staff decisions, even though they go elsewhere and tend to get fired. So I don't know how to parse that out yet in terms of him and putting people around him. Because like, how much is he at this point? I'm pretty confident saying that Nathaniel Hackett was a Matt LaFleur merchant. He rode off of Matt LaFleur's coattails. Luke Getsky went to the Chicago Bears. I'm willing to give an incomplete on that one.
It was a disaster, though. It was the Bears, but it was a disaster.
It is ugly. And Justin Fields ain't any good.
I see. I don't agree with that. I think Justin Fields can be good in the right situation, but Chicago is clearly not the right situation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like you pair. It looks like Belichick probably won't get a job, but let's just run through the hypothetical. Let's say Belichick gets the Washington job and Washington trades for Justin Fields. That could be the right situation. I understand Belichick's a defensive coach, but I think he can maximize him.
Ben Johnson might be able to turn him and Justin Fields, the OC from the Lions.
Oh, I know who Ben Johnson is, and I have a take. I think he's going to be a failure.
I was saying that for the audience.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
I was hoping those people listening, because I don't think he's a household name yet.
He has been the last 2 off seasons, and he'll likely get a job here, either Seattle or Washington. I think he's going to be a failure. I do.
Oh, I mean, to me, from what I've seen, he seems like he knows his stuff. He seems like a pretty smart. Now, is he able to coach an entire team? I have no idea. But I tell you what, I'd want him as my offensive coordinator if I was looking for one. I'll say that much.
I'll give you that. Why is Belichick? What should Belichick do if he takes the year off? Like, he's not going to come to Green Bay and be the D coordinator. I saw a TikTok last night that blew up. That was like manifesting Belichick to the Packers.
TikTok.
TikTok is ruining my brain.
Is that your number one news source?
No, still Twitter probably. That's how I learned about Jeff Goodman being canceled.
Yeah.
Was via Twitter. Yeah. I'm sure there will be TikToks about that, though, at some point. What's your number one news source? You're like you probably still order the newspaper type of guy.
I don't order the newspaper. I do get daily, newsletters, basically, that do a good job of aggregating the news.
Oh, okay, sure.
So I probably have, 4 or 5 things that come to my inbox that I will look at throughout the day. And then Twitter, obviously. Twitter is still the best news source, despite the porn bots and the AI content and all that. It's still where the most information gets shared the fastest.
The porn bots are really starting to bug me because they like tweets from years ago.
Yeah, they've liked some tweets that I don't necessarily love that I sent. Not that I was saying anything bad, but a bad opinion. Or someone picking on me and saying, hey, idiot, you were wrong about this. I don't need that brought back into my life.
No, I agree. I don't know where it went, but I got one yesterday as I was just sitting on the couch watching the games, and I tweeted about what it was I tweeted something about WWE in 2020.
Shocking.
I was brought back to life. Joshy, tell me you watched the Royal Rumble. Tell me right now.
Oh, I did. I went over to Gabe Neitzel's house.
Yes.
Had a couple of barley pops and watched the Royal Rumble. That's the one thing. I'm not really a wrestling guy. I obviously was Attitude Era as a kid. Yep. Stone Cold, The Rock, all that stuff, NWO, all much worth my time and things I look back on fondly. But I've lost interest, but the Royal Rumble will get me going because it's just such a spectacle.
This is my guy right here. All right? I know you tweeted you're going to ruin my day. You just made my day, Joshy. You just made my day because I knew for some reason you were a Royal Rumble guy because everybody should be a Royal Rumble guy. So give me your take. Give me your take from what you watched on Saturday. What's your take?
I think it was an underwhelming because it was a big lore type of thing. you got to be into wrestling to get it. They didn't have the big stars, and now I know Brock Lesnar was probably supposed to be there, and then all that news broke involving Vince and a UFC fighter who also competed in the WWE, which leaves you Ronda Rousey or Brock Lesnar. So it didn't do enough for me in like bringing back the legends. Like Cody Rhodes to me is obviously like I know who he is, but it's not The Rock busting through the door. It's not Stone Cold. It's not Booker T. Like it's none of that to me. So I was a bit underwhelmed just because the name appeal wasn't there. But like, I mean, I was like the Paul brother. He's incredible.
He's solid. Yeah. Logan Paul.
Yeah. So to me, like the crowd pops are funny. The little comedy they tried to get in. It's like it's. I'm not there because I think it's the highest form of entertainment, but it is fun to have a couple beers and laugh at stuff and kind of get excited about somebody going over the top rope.
I would agree. Hunter, do you know who Cody Rhodes is? If I say that name, do you have any idea who that is?
I have absolutely no idea, and I hate the fact that this show has even talked about any wrestling. This is so stupid.
The Rhodes family are legends.
Dusty.
Cool. I'm glad they are, but it's all scripted. You're watching a soap opera, and people bet on it. It's so stupid.
It's not stupid.
Sports are unscripted soap operas for men, so like,
but
I get it. But you also spend half the time on Wildy and Tausch talking about the damn Blackhawks, and nobody in the listening audience gives a damn. So I don't know if you've got much to talk about there.
Yeah, pal. Yeah,
but
Joshy.
At least it's unscripted professional sports.
It
is totally different
than
you guys watching a bunch of steroid guys following a script to beat each other up.
Steroids. So I watched that, and then I went to a karaoke bar Saturday night, Joshy, after my barley pops. During the Rumble. I sang the song Bartender Song by
Shine Down?
No, Bartender Song by Rehab. Do you know that song?
Bartender really did it this
That's
time.
the one. I was in a packed bar, Josh. Nobody knew the song. I said in the middle of the song, I go, wow, this is more of a dud than I thought. And then I continued to sing. Nobody knew nobody in the bar knew the song. I had two people approach me afterwards and say, I've never heard that song in my life. You did a great job. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Was it a younger audience? Because, like, that song, I think, is still big to middle-aged people, like, at this point.
The 41-year-old bartender who I dedicated the song to, he told me he's never heard it either. I was like, wow.
Crazy.
I know, right? So that was such. I had to leave. I couldn't handle the embarrassment.
Yeah, you can't throw out a dud to the karaoke bar and then just stick around.
No, and I think it was more of like a theatrical crowd because there was a lot of Hamilton being sang.
Oh, get out of here!
I had to go. I only made it 2 hours.
That Jesse Nelson dork stuff can get out of my face.
Yeah, that's fair. What's your karaoke song, Joshy?
I don't sing karaoke.
Oh, come on. Yes, you do. Everybody sings karaoke.
The way people act in those, I'll sing it with another person.
Sure.
Or a group effort, but you will never catch me getting up on a mic and just belting out some tunes. No way.
Oh, you got to embrace it. It's a good time. I've come around to the idea of karaoke.
You know what the problem for me, too, is?
What's up?
If I were to go up and be the first one on stage without anybody else performing, I think I'd be better off because I spend the hour and a half preceding watching people go up and make absolute fools of themselves, and I just feel the utmost level of secondhand embarrassment.
Really?
So it's just like, because you got the people who are there obviously for fun, but then there's people who think they're killing it, and they are doing the worst job you've ever seen in your entire life. And it makes me queasy. I can feel it in my stomach.
Queasy. So I don't feel the secondhand embarrassment. I actually just love when people embarrass the hell out of themselves, right? Like the tone deaf people that go up and try to sing some George Strait. Like that actually gives me joy.
Yeah, I feel bad for them.
I don't, because they did it to themselves, and I have a hard time believing you go through life, like operating life, without knowing that you're tone deaf. So if you're signing up for this, you have to know it's going to be all-time bad, and you're going to make somebody's Snapchat story.
I think there are a few people who are aware. I think the vast majority have no idea. I mean, American Idol, when they started doing the show, I don't think they planned on we're going to have bad people that we're totally going to embarrass. I think that was just what ended up happening and then got turned into brilliance. Like,
sure.
At some point, obviously, those people were planted, but I think it started because it was like, oh my God, this person thinks they're going to Hollywood and to be a famous singer, and they can't sing a lick.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. So I was thinking about this, Joshy, and this is actually the sole reason I wanted you on the show today.
Oh boy.
And this is kind of a bad thing to say on air, but whatever, people will forget. So I want to do a really long-term bit, and I don't know what that means yet, but like I want to pop up on America's Got Talent or something without telling anybody. Like I just want, I want to come to work one day and somebody's going to go, holy shit, Strouf, I saw you on America's Got Talent last night. And I don't know what show or what the bit is yet, but I want to come up with a bit where I do something that's like national without telling anybody, without promoting it. And it's really hard for me to keep a secret, so I feel like I'm a bad person for this.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what makes the bit so good. So can we come up with something that I do under the radar for a while, and then we just don't tell anybody until we have to?
Here's the thing for me. I love a good bit. Always love a good bit, and I always love to participate in a good bit.
Yeah.
Our problem here is to end up at that level, you kind of need an in with the casting directors.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a moonshot here. But like the funniest would be is if you showed up on Survivor, like people just turned on the TV and you were a contestant on Survivor. Because obviously that stuff gets filmed months and months and months in advance.
Sure.
But if you know you're probably going to get eliminated because you're just going there to make an absolute like joke of it, you could probably like in 3 weeks or 2 weeks take a 2-week vacation. You could probably knock it out and no one would be any the wiser.
Okay. I actually kind of like this idea.
So there is a problem with the Survivor bit, though.
Okay.
Because my wife is a big fan of the show. Strouf would be so weak at it, though, that people would want to keep him around
true.
to be an easy win at the end.
That would be even better if he was just dead weight and they got traded.
I end up in like the final 5. So
yeah, because then the bit is like, hey, I ended up on Survivor. Here's how I did it on accident. You know, you could still play it off.
I actually did apply to be on a game show once from Netflix, and I got an email that said they weren't interested in interviewing me. Are you guys familiar with The Circle?
Yes. My wife watches that.
I signed up to be on The Circle. And then the next season that came out, the season I signed up for, they had a like national pop music DJ on, who's a very famous TikToker, Brew, if you're familiar with him. So he was already like the radio guy. So I lost my angle there because I thought I could utilize the angle and it'd be an interesting background, right? And I'd get in, and they're like, yeah, we're not interested. So I've tried this.
If you ended up on one of these game shows, because a lot of them, it falls into the classic hero and heel, much like wrestling.
Sure.
Bring it back to that.
Got to be a heel.
Would you embrace a heel role if that's what they wanted you for?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I'd be a villain. I would backstab everybody.
Hunter, do you think he could pull that off? Because he doesn't feel like a heel to me.
I think he could do it once, but then the guilt would just eat him alive.
I'm not a guilt. Okay, but what you guys kind of forget about me is I'm kind of a sociopath.
I was going to say, you're calling yourself a sociopath, just so we're clear. That's what road you're leading yourself down.
Yeah. I don't think I'd feel guilt. I think I think I would thrive on it.
Feel guilty as a human being?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Of course.
I just wanted to make sure, because I'd just exit out and say, yeah, that was a good run.
But for something that doesn't matter, like a game show, oh, man, I'm backstabbing everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to play it, because that's also the way to get yourself the most airtime. Like,
True.
People might hate you on the street, but those are the people and let's be honest, they find those people because they know, like, this person is going to be an issue on this TV show. We're just going to let them cook.
I've never seen Big Brother.
Great show.
I've never watched it myself.
Or The Amazing Race. I've never watched that either, but I know those are like long-running game shows. What about The Bachelorette, Joshy? You think I could make it on a dating show?
Well, you need to be typically like ripped and like extremely well off.
Yeah.
So like,
so I'm 0 for 2. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could invest a lot into your, like you need a 6-pack is basically the start of that, and it needs to be like rippling, and you need the little V that V that goes down, and you probably need to be making about six and a half, like mid 6 figures.
Okay. Well, I'm 0 for 2 then. I did prison workouts for like a week after I moved to my new apartment. It's just push-ups and sit-ups and squats.
Okay.
It lasted like 3 days, and I was like, yeah, I'm done doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how that would happen because people do that because they don't have another option. If you could just leave your house and go to a gym or go for a run, people usually pick those things.
Yeah, no, I'm not picking those things. I'm not going in public to squat. It's awful. I don't need people staring at me.
Fair. It's all fair.
I appreciate that. So anyway, all right. Well, I gotta figure out what my long-term bid is. I'm gonna need your help with the execution. But I think we can do something with this.
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, there is enough notoriety here. This needs to be, and we know a lot of people who, former athletes, people who have connections in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I think you kind of need to work your contacts there because not to be rude, but you ain't doing it just you ain't gonna get there just on your own strophiness.
I'm a really good ass kisser, Joshy. I wouldn't count me out.
You're on the spectrum of ass kissing. You're middle of the road. You're not Ben Bruss level.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I would agree with that. I mean, he's all time though. I mean, that's literally what he's known for.
The goat of smooching cheeks.
yeah, that I would agree with. So, what are you going to do now that football season's almost over? There's only one NFL game left. Obviously, college football's been over for a month. What do you do now? You like watch Netflix?
I slowly try. I haven't watched a TV show like start to end since like I think Stranger Things, the most recent season, came out.
Wow.
I basically like play The Office or Seinfeld in the background of whatever I'm doing. I mean, I've told you plenty of times I read a lot.
Yeah, you're a big reader.
And then it's a slow transition into college basketball. I'll start watching that and then pick up a little bit on the NBA. Obviously, don't really pay attention to that until the playoffs. And then as much as I gave Hunter crap about hockey, I will start watching more hockey.
Yeah.
So do you have a hockey team?
Yes, I grew up a Blackhawks fan.
Oh, so you guys have that in common.
Yeah, I just don't talk about it because I know most people don't care that much.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to I have to force the issue, though. Like, people in Wisconsin need to come around. Hockey's awesome. The Blackhawks are awesome.
How are my Oilers doing? I'm an Oilers fan. How are they doing?
I haven't watched a hockey game yet because
Hunter?
after the football season is when my hockey season started.
Hunter?
Last I saw, they weren't doing well. I can look up the standings, but it was not great.
Okay, so the story there is when I did a college radio show, the two guys I hosted with were huge hockey fans. One was a Penguins fan, the other was a Capitals fan from D.C. So they essentially forced me to become a hockey fan. So I literally had one of those prize wheels that you spin, and I wrote all 30 NHL teams or whatever it was at the time. So there's 32 NHL teams, but I ended up with the Oilers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were good. I know that because they have Connor McDavid, who's like one of the best players on earth at this point. But, yeah, I mean, I make it there. Obviously, I never stop talking or thinking about football. That's
correct. I don't either.
As much as I'm not watching the games, it's still going to be the sport that dominates most of my brain space.
No, I'm
like the draft is coming up, so I'm for sure going to be reading and watching some random guy that I see somebody tweet about and finding a YouTube cut up of him.
Tavon Austin highlights always.
Yes.
I just don't know what to make of like pick 25. It's not a sexy pick. It's not. I mean, I understand you drafted Jordan Love one spot before that, and you drafted Aaron Rodgers one spot after that, but you're not getting a quarterback here. Like, I don't know that you're getting a program changer at 25.
I floated the idea today, and the Packers historically have not done this, but doesn't this team seem primed with, I believe, 5 picks in the top 100 to kind of package something and try and get like a known star or a known talent, or to use those picks to get even higher in the draft. Now, I haven't spent enough time looking at it where I would like, oh, this is the guy they should be targeting at this X position at this point. But, I mean, they have all this draft capital, and frankly, they're, like, aside from the safeties, aside from the middle linebacker spot, and then probably, like, a swing tackle at this point that maybe can turn into more, like, where are the Packers, like, deficient right now? Because, like, you certainly can get better across the board, but you're not going to – there's no use in using all those picks if they all can't make the roster.
No, that's fair, right? I mean, this was really the first year we saw that a draft pick didn't make the team. And shout out Lou Nichols, the running back out of Central Michigan, was a 7th-round draft pick. You're right about that. In terms of deficiencies, safety is obviously the glaring one. You could probably beef up at corner. You can probably beef up at linebacker, at least on the inside. Offensively, you feel pretty good, right? Like, you probably need a running back. You need, like you mentioned, maybe a swing tackle or maybe a replacement for Josh Myers at center. But other than that, you're in a really good spot. And I think, and I hear a lot of people say this, but I don't think it's an overreaction when you say the Green Bay Packers championship window is open, which is really interesting to me because given what we thought 1 year ago at this time when you're moving on from Aaron Rodgers, you're like, oh, man, this is going to be a long year. But then this team proves they can win a playoff game on the road, proves they can compete with the San Francisco 49ers, who are literally representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. It just makes you feel really good about where this team's at. So what you can address in the draft outside of safety, I don't think will have a huge impact in 2024. And that's assuming health, obviously. But you feel good about D-line. You feel good about edge if you can work some contracts out. Offensively, you feel good about every skill position. Right, Aaron Jones will be back. Wide receivers are stacked. Tight end is stacked. Jordan Love's your guy. I don't know, Joshy, but September can't come quick enough because I'm ready to see this team back on the frickin' football field. And I know it's only been a week, but I'm ready.
Yeah, I don't get there yet, especially because I do love the NFL draft and all that goes into it. But I think you're totally right, and I will be interested to see how Brian Gutekunst does approach it. Because the Super Bowl window is as open as humanly possible. Shefty obviously said on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy the other week that quarterbacks in the league. But what the Packers can do is give him more money, but kind of keep his base salary and the number that counts against the cap pretty low probably for the next few years. So if there's ever a time, because people seem to forget that Goody did go out and sign free agents with Adrian Amos, Zadarius Smith, and Preston Smith. Like, those guys weren't on the team, and then they were because they were gotten through free agency. So he's not against doing that. Maybe he just hasn't found the right spots, or the Aaron Rodgers uncertainty has caused him to kind of almost be frozen in an action. But there's nobody who's watched the Green Bay Packers play all their games and seen the guys around it develop that are like, have any doubt about what these next 5 years should be from an expectation standpoint.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. So we will see. I'm just still depressed, Josh. I'm still depressed. I really wish that team was playing yesterday because I feel like they could have won yesterday. They blew their opportunity against San Francisco, and then Detroit blew it, and I felt like they would have beat Detroit on the road. I'm just sad. It should be Mahomes versus Love, the faces of the NFL, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they overperform. I'm like, during the week, I wasn't in I'm going to take the 30,000-foot view of this team. But after they lost, after they fired Joe Barry, and you start looking around, it's really easy for me to not let it, because the 49ers are great. You did have them on the ropes, but you lost to a really good football team.
You sure did.
And you lost to a team that went on and did this basically the same exact thing against a team who, up until the Packers lost that game, people were saying this team might be better than the Detroit Lions. So I'm not caught up in it because, like, the Super Bowl window is as open as I can remember, and the excitement I have for the Packers is that of the transition from Favre to Rodgers and that Super Bowl win they had in 2011. Like that, I haven't been as high as a Packer fan. And as much as, yeah, you let one slip out of your fingers, it's still, none of my expectations have changed or come back to earth since that happened.
Oh, I love that. Okay, that seems like a perfect place to let you go because I'm all fired up. I got goosebumps right now. I can't wait for the Green Bay Packers to win a Super Bowl next year. This was their 2009. Next year's their 2010. And then the following year, they're going to go undefeated because it'll be their 2011. History repeats itself, Josh. I'm telling you.
Book it. Let's go. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go, my man. Appreciate you, Josh. This is great.
Thanks for having me.
Josh DiMaggio, producer of Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, weekdays, 7 to 9 a.m. on ESPN Milwaukee. I really derailed the conversation there when I brought up my long-term bit. I should go on Survivor. I love this idea. I'd be really, really bad at Survivor. Like, I'd be the all-time worst contestant. I'm weak. I bitch and moan about everything. Like, I'd have to live outside. Bugs freak me out. I'd be so bad on that show. I love this idea.
And the thing is, they rarely take somebody who's like, if they're going to take somebody that's bad, it's because they're just not going to get along with people. They're not going to take somebody that's bad because they just can't handle being out in the wilderness. And that's where you fall apart.
It's my best idea ever. Best idea ever. All right, you learn something new every day. I learned something new today. It's time now for What Strouf Learned. So I mentioned at the top, and I mentioned a little bit there with Joshy, college hoops, man. Like, it is officially college hoop season. It's time to lock in and really start paying attention to this. So Friday I went over to the Kohl Center. I watched Wisconsin beat up on Michigan State pretty good. A.J. Storr, phenomenal for the Badgers. Tom Izzo, the head coach of Michigan State, said he's one of the best players he's ever seen come out of Wisconsin, which is really, really high praise for a guy that's been coaching at such a high level for a long time, and obviously against Wisconsin for a long time. So A.J. Storr doing things we have not seen since maybe Sam Decker for the Badgers in terms of a dominant player. Right? Johnny Davis had the year. What Storr's doing is just a little bit better, I would argue, than Johnny Davis. He's going to elevate himself to a first-round draft pick, probably not this year, but next year, which is fun because that means you probably get multiple years of A.J. Storr as the guy for this team. And this team is set up for more past this year, right? Like, you lose Tyler Wall and Steven Crowell after this year, but you still feel good about what you have at those positions in terms of depth. So this Wisconsin team all the way up to number 6 in this week's AP poll. I mentioned the top 6 matchup they have coming up on Sunday at the Kohl Center, their next home game. They'll host number 2 Purdue. Okay, that's one top 10 matchup in college basketball this week. How about Saturday, the day before Purdue, Wisconsin? You have number 4 Houston going to number 8 Kansas. You have number 7 Duke versus number 3 North Carolina in the best rivalry in college basketball. That's a top 10 matchup. And also Saturday, you have number 5 Tennessee, who beat Wisconsin earlier in the year with Dalton Connect and company, heading to number 10 Kentucky. So you have 10 teams in the top 10, obviously. 8 of them play one another this week. You have 4 top 10 games this weekend in college hoops. This has to be the greatest weekend slate of college basketball in the regular season ever. I imagine nothing like this has ever happened. 4 top 10 matchups within a less than 24-hour period. Number 4 Houston, number 8 Kansas, number 7 Duke at number 3 North Carolina, number 5 Tennessee at number 10 Kentucky, and then Sunday number 2 Purdue here at number 6 Wisconsin. It's incredible. This is the best preparation you're going to get for your bracket ever. You're going to see Goliaths versus Goliaths all weekend. It's amazing. Like, this is the greatest slate and the greatest preview you could possibly have in college basketball. And on a weekend, by the way, in which the NFL essentially takes it off, other than maybe a glorified flag football game, this is as good as it gets. So for those of you that feel sad like I do today, because there's only one NFL game left this season, football's done essentially, right? You get the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. You need to figure out what else you're going to occupy your time with. And for me, I don't watch television. Joshy said it there. He hasn't watched anything start to finish since The Walking Dead, I think he said, or something like that.
Stranger Things. Why don't you listen to your guests?
Stranger Things. I screw those two shows up all the time in my defense.
They're completely different.
Okay, I understand that, Hunter. You could probably throw Schitt's Creek in there, too. I've never watched that. I know it's completely different.
Oh, you're such an idiot.
Yeah, I was told I need to watch that today. I probably never will. That's beside the point. This is what you occupy your time with, is the greatest slate in college basketball you've ever seen in a regular season in a 2-day stretch. You should do nothing on Saturday and Sunday but watch college hoops. That's my prescription for you, sad NFL fan. Watch college hoops. 8 of the top 10 teams facing one another this weekend. Absolutely awesome. The only 2 teams in the top 10 that don't have a top 10 matchup, number 1 and number 9 Marquette. That's amazing. Amazing. I'm so fired up about this. This is life-changing, like legitimately, because usually this weekend I spend like in depression It's like, oh, what do I do? There's no football on. I know what I'm going to do. How are you fired up about this, or am I overreacting?
No, I'm definitely fired up. And what's helpful about a weekend like this is that you watch all of these teams. You've got a big chunk of what you expect to be the Sweet 16 potential Elite 8 teams.
Yeah.
Then you can spend your other parts of the weekend once the football season is fully done watching some A10 or Mountain West games. You got to get those Cinderella teams that are going to win the mid-majors.
You're absolutely right.
And that's how you figure out your bracket.
And by the way, some of the other games of note this week, number one, UConn, I mentioned, doesn't have a game this week. They do play Providence, by the way. Was that tomorrow or Wednesday? Wednesday, they play Providence. Providence has beaten number 9 Marquette and number 6 Wisconsin this year. They're a good team. Marquette, who do they play this week? They've got Villanova tomorrow,
they've got Villanova, and then they have somebody else too. It's a good week of basketball.
I love this, man. So we're going to lock in at college hoops. We're going to talk some college hoops later this week and into next week as we lead up to the Super Bowl. Obviously, we'll talk a lot of football. We'll talk a lot about the Super Bowl. But college hoops is in, so I'm in on that. The Doc Rivers era gets underway tonight for the Bucks as they head to Denver. 5-game road trip for Doc to take over, take the reins, which is really interesting. To go 5 straight games on the road, like good team bonding, I guess, with your new head coach.
Well, and it's a good way for him to just set things up of, hey, this is what we're going to be. Let's go through a tough stretch right away. I love it.
I also love it.
I'm trying to be positive about this team.
The Bucks? You should be positive. I mean, they're still a good team. They just got some things to figure out.
I know, but that's why I don't want to be figuring this out a couple of weeks before the All-Star break.
No, I get that, but you have to understand, you don't want to be playing your best hoops in February. And that same goes in college basketball, right? Like, it's a little concerning that Wisconsin is playing as well as they are. Because obviously you want to win. You want to win every game you play. And you want to set yourself up for success in March. But you want to be playing your best basketball in the Big Ten tournament and into the NCAA tournament. For the Bucks, you don't want to be playing your best basketball in February. We've seen that so many times with teams LeBron James has been on. Or maybe teams James Harden has been on, right? Guys that maybe, he might be a better example. Russell Westbrook, guys that haven't won a ring, who are playing their best basketball this early, before the All-Star break. And then they come back from the All-Star break and fall apart, and then their first-round exit. For the Bucks, you made the move at the right time, bringing in Doc Rivers and trying to reset and understand your defense, your defensive scheme, because there was a lack thereof, right, under Adrian Griffin. So this is good. A 5-game road trip's good. Go to the All-Star break. You have more time to iron it out. I think this is the right move. It's a home run swing. I'm actually all in on the Doc Rivers hire. So we'll talk more about that later in the week as well. All right. Big thanks to Joshy. Big thanks to Hunter, as always, for running the show. That'll do it for us today. We're back with you Wednesday beginning at 12:30 on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And, of course, wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. I'm still pissed the Packers didn't play yesterday, but I'll get over it. All right. That does it for us. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Peace.